Thank you for joining me on another episode of She Leads Now, a podcast for women entrepreneurs and professionals who want to expand your innate leadership ability and influence, cultivate a culture of belonging and collaboration, develop others to perform at their greatest potential, and of course, live a life that is fulfilling, abundant, and impactful. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon. After nearly 14 years of climbing the corporate ladder as an HR professional and a leader, I became a corporate dropout and have spent the past several years helping organizations and leaders align their business goals with their talent strategies, strengthen their leadership bench, and create environments that employees actually want to be a part of. Tune in every Wednesday for insight, practical tools and strategies, as well as inspiring stories from other women leaders who have climbed the ropes and are now making a huge impact within their spheres of influence. Looking forward to chatting with you soon. Hello and welcome to another episode of She Leads Now. I am thrilled, excited, happy, and overjoyed, all of the things, to be with you here for another episode of the podcast. Today is a solo episode, and actually at the time of this recording or this release, it is the beginning of fall. So with that, I hope you all had a wonderful summer break. I hope you had some time to rest, to get rejuvenated, to decompress, and do all of the fun things now that I believe this feels, at least to me, like the first summer that we've been able to really get out and play since the pandemic started. So hopefully you had a wonderful summer break. The kids are back in school, refocused and ready to finish the year off strong. So today I want to focus on a topic that has obviously been in the news for quite some time, although as you'll hear, my take on it is going to be a lot different than most of what is out there. And so today's focus is really around the recession and, how to recession-proof your life, career, and business. So as most of you are aware, there's been a lot of talk about the economic downturn here in the US between the inflation and recession news, social issues, talks of layoffs and hiring freezes, you name it. There's a lot of fear and anxiety in the atmosphere. And as leaders, we're being looked to for answers and solutions to navigate these external factors and troubling times. But what happens when the leaders themselves are caught up in the chaos and we ourselves are having difficulty processing all of the information and the growing challenges? Who do we turn to for answers or some level of assurance that this too shall pass? How do we remain grounded in the face of mounting obstacles for ourselves, our teams, our organizations, families, and communities? That's exactly what I want to focus on today. So first and foremost, let's face it, times of economic challenges weigh heavily on everyone. But I think the burden might feel slightly heavier for leaders and those in leadership positions. Though a lot of these external factors are seemingly out of our control, the truth is, part of being an effective leader is having the capacity and the ability to look ahead and make decisions, or at least, at the very least, put systems in place to help hedge against challenges and obstacles. Because as we all know, and if we've been around long enough, it's never a matter of if, but when. And many times, if we're willing to do the self-reflective work, we're able to trace back to the decisions that we've made that brought us face to face with an obstacle. For example, not assessing our numbers and financial health before making purchasing or hiring decisions, or allowing ourselves to get so lost in the trenches, we forgot to look up and assess the current market conditions. Another example of this is forgetting that market and business results are cyclical. There's always going to be a time of prosperity and abundance, followed by a period of drought or limited resources. So as leaders, the burden often falls on us to either take these things into consideration ahead of a challenging period and have contingency plans ready to go, or at the very least, be ready to take swift action to mitigate the impending impact. That's a lot of weight to carry, especially when you're trying to work through your own emotions and fears about what's happening around you. I get it. that's why today's focus is what it is. I want to really talk through from a leadership perspective. You all know, if you've been listening for a while, what my definition of leadership is. It's not centered around a particular role or a particular title, but really as leaders, right? Leading home, leading career, leading business, you name it, how you can stay grounded and maintain an optimistic perspective as you lead yourself and others during this time. First things first, let's address your mindset about money and how times of recession and economic downturns challenge your beliefs. So let me start off by saying so many of us have experienced periods in our lives where our identities were intertwined with the amount of money we had or made. I know I've certainly been there. And for some of you, you may be there now, and that's okay. My encouragement to you, though, if you are there, is to learn how to separate yourself from the idea of money. We are humans, not the numbers in our bank accounts. Do we need money to function in this world? Yes. Does having it make life seem easier to navigate? Yes, of course. But will we stop existing if we don't have it or the amount we think we need to have? No. Money is a tool. It's a tool that we use as currency in exchange for time, goods, services, and so on. And that's it. During times of recessions, money does not go away. It just simply changes hands, so to speak. Basically, banks and financial institutions get a little stingier with the money they have access to, making it more challenging for businesses and consumers to gain access to it. Yes, that's a very simplistic way of explaining it, but at the same time, that's all a recession means. So, my hope for those of you who are listening is that you'll take some time to examine what, if any, fears have become present for you concerning money in the past few months. And from there, decide if or how to reframe any beliefs and thoughts about money that no longer serve, so that you can look at the financial health of your business, of your organization, or your household from a clearer perspective and make decisions that are grounded in fact and not emotion. That's the first tip for recession proofing your life. Start with your mindset, start with your understanding of the reality of what's actually taking place around you and how it may or may not be impacting your perspective and subsequent decisions from that perspective. Next, I'd like to briefly go over some opportunities during periods of recession. So, if we really look back historically, many great brands and businesses were birthed during times of recession. Think Uber, Lyft, Airbnb. They are all perfect examples of companies that didn't exist before the recession, but now they're household names. As a leader, which is everyone that is listening to this now, rather than get caught up in the widespread fear mongering of the media outlets, why not choose this time and this period to seek out opportunities to innovate in your own organization or your business? What projects or improvements have you been putting off exploring because you are too busy servicing your clients or your customers? Which services can you improve or get rid of altogether within your business that will help increase the value of service to your clients or your customers, and that you can actually use to leverage as a value proposition for your future clients? Which team members do you currently have that have demonstrated interest or the skill set to operate or function in a different department that you can actually leverage? You can help support them in their growth, but also gain a resource to help you grow your company or your department. At the end of the day, you can leverage a recession for your favor. Anything that we go through in life, let's be real, let's be honest, right? There's the negative side of it, right? The consequences that we face, but there's always the opportunity and there's always a positive side. So my encouragement to you today as a leader and as a business owner is that you first do the self-work of assessing, your own emotions and your own thoughts around what the recession means and the limitation or the lack or the scarcity that's being put out there. And then once you've done that work and can see from a clearer lens, being intentional about looking for opportunities in which you can grow, in which your business can grow, or your organization, or even your team can grow and benefit from this time in this period. Hey there, Sabine here. If you have been listening to this show for any amount of time, you know that I am extremely passionate about helping leaders, professionals, entrepreneurs grow, advance, and make an even bigger impact in the world. And with this passion as my driving force, I have created the Strategic Growth Accelerator. This accelerator is something that I've been using with clients one on one, and I've seen clients make amazing progress towards their goals and even crushed their goals and gone beyond what they believed that they were capable of when we first started working together. The Strategic Growth Accelerator is a 90-day program where you and I work together one on one to identify and to create a roadmap for you to achieve or exceed one specific goal. The Strategic Growth Accelerator is not just for anybody, and I don't mean that in a mean way. It is for individuals who know exactly what they want to achieve, but are stuck, aren't clear on the first step to take, or maybe they just want the support and the accountability of an experienced coach to come alongside them, to challenge them, and to push them beyond the limits they've created in their own mind. If that is you, I would love to work with you. I only have a limited amount of spots simply because I want to make sure that I am available and have the capacity to support you in any way that you need during the 90 days of us working together. Learn more about the accelerator and about the process at sabinegideon.com/accelerator. Again, that's sabinegideon.com/accelerator. I am so excited to really help you make 2022 your best year yet. If you have goals that have been sitting on the shelf or sitting in your mind or sitting on your whiteboard that you know you want to complete and or want to achieve this year, this is the program for you. Head over to sabinegideon.com/accelerator and sign up for a consultation for me to learn more about your goal and for us to decide if it makes sense for us to work together. So again, sabinegideon.com/accelerator. I cannot wait to work with you this year. See you inside the accelerator. The more you allow yourself to really focus and understand the inner workings of a recession, the more you'll be able to leverage it so that you can come on out on top, so that those around you can come out on top. And at the end of the day, what it really is going to require is you as the leader, regardless of what capacity that is in right now, but you as a leader creating space in your mind and of course your day-to-day activities to assess the present opportunities and then deploy the resources you do have in order to make something new or different happen. Because at the end of the day, money is not going anywhere. It's just changing hands temporarily. And ultimately, you do have resources that are available to you. So the challenge here and the invitation here is to look at the resources that you do have available from a critical eye and then decide how can you best leverage those resources. And, you know, this goes for those of you who are, of course, in corporate environments as well. If you're thinking to yourself, well, you know, I'm not running a business, this is your time to shine as well. You know, think through what are some strategies that could be a game changer for the department, for the organization. Where are there inefficiencies that you and your team could address that might lead to cost savings or even more productivity? One example I want to give here, a personal example, back in 2009, 2010, during the last recession or the last big recession, you know, I was in corporate America and I was just a few years into my career at that point, maybe about 5 or 6 years. And we had experienced layoffs in the organization. And that was the first time I had ever experienced that. So naturally, it was a very scary time, a lot of ambiguity of what it meant, so on and so forth. But during that time period in the talent acquisition department, which is where I worked, about 50% of the team got laid off, which was devastating, right? Because many of these team members, even though we were all across the nation, they were people who I had become friends with. I knew their family, I knew their children. And then, of course, the people who worked with me day in and day out, you know, in the cubicle right beside me. Losing those people and those individuals that you worked with so closely was a challenging time. After all of the dust settled from that, I was asked to do some research on our competitors around what they had in place for onboarding new leaders. There was not a shortage of organizations that I could tap into to better understand what they were doing. And the more research I did, the more I realized that none of our competitors had anything in place, or at least they didn't have anything in place that they were willing to share publicly. And so that led to me working on a project to create a leader assimilation guide or leader assimilation process for new leaders coming into the organization, because oftentimes leaders come into organizations, especially at the senior and executive level, they're sold the goods of like how great this company is and the impact they're going to be able to make. But then they come in to the organization and they are spending months and months and sometimes years just sifting through all of the problems and the challenges. Well, this leader assimilation guide allowed them to understand up front, right, where their challenges were, where the opportunities were, where the quick ones were, so that they were successful and they could hit the ground running. Now, I've used this guide or variation of it because it's definitely improved and changed as I've grown in my career and as I've worked with more and more leaders. But it's something that I was able to come up with during that very devastating time that had a huge impact on the department, had a huge impact on the organization. And to this day, I still use it, or like I said, variation of it, to support my clients as they're transitioning into new roles. And so I wanted to share that personal example to show you that no matter what the situation is, no matter, what external factors are happening, you don't lose your genius. You don't lose your creativity. You don't lose the opportunity to impact change. So my question for you, for those of you who are listening, regardless of whether or not you own your own business or you're leading a department or a function in a business or you're leading your household or your community, what is your game changing initiative going to be during this time? And how are you going to leverage it to advance in your career, or to advance your business, or to advance your team? I hope I've been helpful in breaking down and creating a more simplistic understanding and awareness of what it means to be in a recession. But more importantly, how do you as a leader, as an individual, rise up above this external circumstance to, one, get grounded and keep a right perspective around what it really means so that you can lead yourself, so that you can lead others throughout this process. And then second, hopefully, this has been encouraging for you to challenge your thinking around this time frame and really explore some of the creative ideas that you've been sitting on, or the things that you've been wanting to work through, or the things that your team members have brought to you in the past several years, and exploring how can you make this work? How can you show up in your business or in your organization differently than before? As I've shared, recessions are never a matter of if, they're just a matter of when. And I know it can be a stressful time. I know that, anxiety is at an all-time high, but if you can understand how to navigate it, the threat to you will become less and less of a threat. And you can use the recession to set yourself, your team, your family, and broader community up for a more positive and prosperous financial future. So, with that, I want to know, what are you doing to prepare for the recession? Or what have you been doing to prepare for the recession? Please feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn at Sabine Gideon, or send me an email at support@sabinegideon.com. I'd love to hear what you've put in place. I'd love to hear how you're supporting your team, your organization, or your clients in navigating and recession proofing their life, business, or career. Last thing I just want to share with you, I have a couple of free assessments that are available. If you go to the show notes, you can go to sheleadsnow.com. And there are a couple show notes, a personal values assessment, as well as a behavior assessment that you can take. And the assessments will be delivered to your inbox, and you can read through, gain a little bit more awareness of you, of your strengths, of your drivers, and how it impacts the way that you show up in the world and certainly the way that you show up at work and in your business. And then lastly, as you heard, please be sure to check out sabinegideon.com/accelerator for additional details about the Strategic Growth Accelerator. Again, I only have a few spots and spaces are starting to fill up. So I would encourage you to not wait and go ahead, check out the website, learn more about the program itself. And if you have questions or if you want to see if it's a good fit for you, go ahead, hit that button and set up a consultation. And I'll be happy to talk that through with you so we can decide if and how I can support you through the end of the year in reaching your goals. With that, I will leave you. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and I will be back joining you next week. Until then, take care. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of She Leads Now. If you found today's episode helpful or got a piece of insight that you plan to implement in your business or organization, I would love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Sabine Gideon, that's my handle, and send me a private message. Or feel free to go ahead and leave a review on either Apple or Spotify. I also invite you to share this episode with anyone in your network who you think might benefit from this content. Lastly, be sure to check the show notes and the description below for links to resources, including relevant downloads, articles, and any upcoming training. Until we chat again, have a blessed and powerful week.